Chapter 30. Killing Mireu. Some dreams, some poems, some musical phrases, some pictures, wake feelings such as one never had before, new in color and form, spiritual sensations, as it were, hitherto unproved. George MacDonald. In Claire's dream, Ethan was trying to show her something magnificent, but she couldn't catch him. She would just get within a few feet of him, but then he would smile and go through a door and then laugh and come out a window. Finally, she reached him and said, "Now, what is it?" And he laughed, and he kept laughing until his face became a red and orange old man like a dragon with evil eyes, and the teeth of the man opened wider and wider until they swallowed her, and she woke up. "Ethan!" Claire gasped. But she was alone in her tiny home out in Montana. He had been gone so long. It was months by this point. Claire was unsettled. She climbed from her bed, knelt down, and said a prayer for Ethan, that he not become that thing she had seen, and that he stay safe. Ethan was chasing Claire, and she didn't want to be caught. She had something to show him, something wonderful, something secret, something that would fulfill all his greatest dreams and desires. He almost reached her, nearly grasped the tips of her fingers. Then she squealed and ran through a doorway that became a meadow, diving into a pool that became a forest, swimming through trees that became a sky, and dancing amidst a parade of ballerinas from the stars arrayed in all color. They all told him to come along to join the dance. And now he reached her, and she danced with him, and they came high into the sky, leaving weight behind until they rested upon an island that drifted through galaxies in deep space, illuminated in an emerald light from a vagabond star. He was holding her hands, and she was leaning backward over an abyss of darkness that stretched away forever and ever. She said, "Don't drop me, Ethan," and yanked on his arms, pulling him toward the abyss. He cried out and pulled her back. "I'm trying! Don't let me go, Ethan!" she screeched and pulled him harder. "Stop pulling me! I can't help it, Ethan! Ethan! Ethan!" Now she had begun to shriek at him, and her nails dug into his hands, and her eyes became black, and her mouth opened wide, and great teeth grew forward, and the shriek became a howl and a bellow and a rage-filled ululation. Ethan let go and fell onto the floating island in the cosmos, whereupon the darkness of space was soon replaced with a crystalline sky of blinding white over a blighted desert with a river of life in all colors snaking across black sand. And the island came flying fast to the winding caravan, and it was those from decades past, from eras old and eras grand, and they sang and danced and danced and danced, desiring Ethan to take a chance on their ridiculous, sensual, lilting prance. He looked away quick and closed his eyes, only to find, no matter what he did, they couldn't close, and everywhere he looked became some focal point for that which would seduce him, until the colors changed and the pain assuaged, to be replaced with darkest space, and now a glowing evil face, a bearded dragon keeping pace with every fear of Ethan's brain and dragging him to worlds insane, ever faster, ever strange, ever meaner, teasing pain. Somewhere in the back of his soul, Ethan understood what was going on. They were breaking through his mind to his spiritual core, seeking to compel him by the endless revolutions of madness to give it up. But they couldn't get through. They couldn't pierce the shield of God himself, and sought to distract instead, keeping him overstimulated. Every clear thought was immediately interrupted by some memory, recollection, desire, or fear that he could not ignore, until finally he was able to cast away the influence of the beast in the name of God, and then he awoke, ripping the tube from his mouth, ripping the thin, strange covering from his body, and quickly vomiting. "Ethan!" Ricky yelled. "Piece of pie! Oh, man!" And Ethan puked again at the thought of pie, trembling a bit, then saying, "I'll be all right. There was a deep rumbling sound and a menacing low moan. In his carrier, Cletus perked up from Ricky's pack, looking to the sound. Behind the Pearl, a massive portal opened atop Mount Peck 2. Ricky turned back to Ethan. "You were out an hour. I didn't think you'd make it." "I don't know if I'm gonna, fam. I need help." "I've got you." And Ricky helped him stumble run toward the portal as the legs of the beast pushed up from underground, and the entirety of the evil structure began to move, the monster fleeing to the sea, its mind broken, all remaining the instinct of terror, a true flight response. Insu stayed hooked into Mireu a full month. At times he would strain, at times he would call out and writhe. His light never turned green, nor did it turn red. The system was fighting him, and soon other lights around him became yellow. In several instances, people awoke and were able to pull themselves from the capsules, where they were quickly arrested and interred in a hidden convalescent facility as atrophied muscles were gradually rebuilt. The tubes hooked those inside cylinders to intravenous nutrition and expurgatory medical equipment, so they stayed alive as long as their mind could handle the madness, even as their bodies withered like unwatered flora. The dear leader began living in that server facility, telling the public through his propaganda conduits that his absence was due to him presiding over exercises atop Mount Pektu, secret exercises requiring utmost patriotic security. Indeed, the strangest portal of all came, and by that time, the dear leader learned enough from Choi's mismanagement to play his cards close to his chest and avoid losing any more men by making immediate entry. He told the soldiers on Pektu to hold and monitor rather than actively enter the rift. When he disconnected the call from his military staff, the evil noise subconsciously perceived from Mireu's hardware infrastructure was gone. Coming out, he realized Mireu was dead, and he felt a sort of thrill inside, the likes of which he wasn't sure he ever experienced before. Insu was released from his capsule. He didn't move, and the dear leader snapped his fingers until a few underlings got the message and ran over, helping the old man out of the tube. The dear leader clapped Insu on his rickety shoulder. "Well done! They'll take care of you now!" Insu replied, rasping, struggling to breathe. "Even you may see the Golden City, if you truly ask." They held eye contact. Finally, the dear leader, a murderous little narcissistic dictator, raised on the largesse of perhaps the most successful of history's crime families, said, "I know where to find the text of your kind. They will speak to you if you let them." "I'd like to see that," replied the dear leader, sincerely. "Now, on your way," and he gestured. Insu was carried out. He fully expected treachery and execution. What he received was a 2-week stay in an underground hospital where every single move he made was totally monitored, and he was disallowed to speak with anyone, including staff. When he could walk on his own, he was treated to a trip in a jeep through a deep tunnel under the DMZ and well past the South Korean border. They led him up via trapdoor in the basement of an abandoned farmhouse and told him never to return to the spot on pain of immediate execution, showing him surveillance cameras all about the area, indicating more were where they could not be observed. Insu was first in a daze, then he was amazed, then he wept and laughed and jumped in the air, screaming adulation to the powers of God that saved him, and he practically ran to the nearest police station, where he gleefully told them he was a defector, and they transferred him to a Seoul facility specifically designed to help defectors assimilate, where he met dozens he helped through Snake's Tunnel in the previous month, and their reunion was a thing of such joy some wondered if they died, and all before were but a dream. Was it also coincidence Pak Sun-young's people managed that reorientation facility? And so there was Durai, and so the reunion became yet again a level greater. While these things happened, thousands of individuals, some from ancient Joseon, if their costumes were any indication, began coming from a rift in reality atop Mount Pektu. Not all who go missing in North Korea die in concentration camps. Among these thousands were some from Russia, though they were few. Ricky and Ethan were just pixels amidst the display, unnoticed due to the sheer number of people coming through. There were not nearly enough North Korean troops atop Mount Pektu to immediately process the crowd. About 20 of the dear leader's best men, sent to monitor the disturbance, tried and failed to do anything. None expected thousands to leak into North Korea. Ricky was able to help Ethan away from the crowd and down a ridge to a particular rocky outcropping where Cletus opened a way out. It was a big enough portal those managing the influx noticed, but by the time they finally were able to send somebody to investigate, it closed. Ricky left Ethan in Montana, where he knocked on Claire's door at some point early in the morning. She hardly seemed surprised to see him. "I've been praying for you," she said. Ethan smiled tiredly. "I thought so. You gonna come in?" "Yeah. Hey, you mind if I... crash here for a bit?" And he was already asleep on the couch. "Kaido, don't forget the garbage. It's a Tuesday." When his mother said this out of the blue from her coma, sitting up, Kaido gasped and flinched so bad he dropped the anime Bible. "Mom! What's wrong with you? Look at the sky! That truck will be around the corner any minute. Son, get the garbage out!" Tears leapt to his eyes following a smile. "I did it already." "What's wrong with my bedroom?" Now she was looking around. Kaido hugged her. He wasn't the only one in the facility to be overjoyed by the sudden reawakening of a loved one. In that special hospital with 1,000 coma patients, suddenly only 1 in 10 remained unconscious, and the staff of the facility had no idea how to handle this sudden unexpected shift. Not a single doctor in the facility had any idea what happened. It shouldn't have happened. It was their job to keep the sleepers dreaming. And now each looked at his corrupt fellow in alarm, and Yakuza tattoos suddenly began itching on their backs under medical scrubs. The game would soon be up. Near Kaido's laptop, which now rested closed beside the bed of his mother, who couldn't believe how long she had been unconscious, a little LED blinked. The LED was on the end of the flash drive Kaido left plugged in, which he hadn't been able to make much sense of before his computer crashed. That drive accessed the internet all on its own, and following protocols programmed by Ethan, set about determining its own location and those who were to access it. It, of its own accord, identified the intranet network of the facility and invited itself to the party, following algorithmic design to the source of information capture and management across said facility. It continued from there until it finally reached the system folder and operating data for that information, a centralized hub designed to keep tabs on an entire region. This hub turned out to be a distance server array run by the Yamaguchi-gumi. Within the control hub of the array, remotely managed from a finely manicured estate done up in the most beautiful Japanese style, Yami Fujimoto argued drunkenly with her father. She had just said this: "But you wouldn't even have your secret victory if it weren't for me." "Isn't that true? Aren't I the one who encountered the Black Dragon? Wasn't I the one who got Mireu to run?" "So, anyone could have done those things. You have no part in this victory, Yami. If you like, I'll give you enough yen to buy your own shopping district. Go have fun. But I do not grant you control of the open transport lanes. It isn't yours to hoard. Have you forgotten your manners when addressing me?" Yami blinked at him, now bowing in anger. He continued, "It is not my will. Behold!" The head of the Yamaguchi-gumi gestured, and the face of the black dragon appeared in the center of the room. A dark reptile the size of a truck, smirking, floating, an audiographic hologram. It said this: "Yami, well have you done. But careful you are not, and your part is complete. I will kill you myself if you will not value the leadership of the king I have chosen in your father." She stared at the apparition with a look that sought to be confident, but became afraid. And then she looked at her father, and tears sprang up in her eyes, and she staggered off, leaving the room. The dragon turned to her father. "The Korean dragon has fought the Russian dragon, and both gold and green have gone together into fire. Now rivals are gone, and I will have their knowledge. You have extracted data from that little tech whiz of theirs. The dragon's head was replaced with surveillance footage of a white man in a cubicle of a library. He was sleeping beneath the desk of the cubicle. The camera zoomed in on an AR headset right by his face. Very briefly, the headset blinked a dark color, then resumed dormancy. The dragon's face returned. I have everything he does now. And the retired inspector has just given me the Rosetta Stone. Stone! 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 Now the dragon got louder and louder and louder, and its head expanded, and there was a deafening, exultant screech, blowing all speakers in the facility, and chasing a number of high rollers out of rooms with paper walls and geisha girls, confused as every electronic device in the brothel atop Yamaguchi-gumi headquarters essentially resigned. The head of the Yamaguchi-gumi first expected his daughter sabotage the system somehow, but in the days that followed it developed she had not. The QAI, codenamed Black Dragon, Kuro Doragon in Japanese, could no longer be contacted. All associated data was completely fried, from the operating system outward in all the units. This resulted in a police presence visiting his property like a caravan of howling banshees in their squad cars. What is this? Do you know who I am? Do you know you've all just signed your death warrant? This wasn't that's when the Yakuza boss of bosses noticed news crews. They had cameras, and they were reporting fast, if not demanding a statement from him. Perhaps their breathless exclamations are best expressed piecemeal. They went something like this. The purported head of the Yamaguchi-gumi, Japan's most notable Yakuza clan, peace was shattered at his palatial estate in northern Japan as the Koma scandal continues to develop. It appears after COVID, the Yakuza found a very sneaky opportunity for profit involving unconscious senior citizens, kept in comas, to act as organic state processing units in a new type of quantum computer. Sound like science fiction? Well, I am standing at to do with Kuro Doragon, a Japanese quantum artificial intelligence, or QAI, so advanced it has been blamed in the crashing of a satellite near one of Russia's coldest cities months ago. VKD has previously been embroiled in controversy over the issue, but new information shows, and the bedlam persisted as Yakuza's boss of bosses was arrested, and the spirit of the country began to revive. In the hospital, Kaido's mother came back enough to remember she'd just made her exit from the most extraordinary dream. She couldn't really give Kaido any concrete idea pertaining to the details of that dream, other than noting it included him. At length, she said, "Oh, Kaido, I'm so glad to see you again, my honorable boy." "I'm not so honorable." "Hush," she said. "Hand me the remote control." "Sleep well?" asked Roger. He was sitting with a foot on his knee by a chair in Ricky's basement room back at the calm silo of North Dakota. Hey, what now? What are we doing?" Ricky sat up, rubbing his eyes fast. No, nothing like that. You did good, Mr. Patel." "Hey, why did you make me take that flash drive anyway? I never got to use it." "Ethan needed it to find the digital fortresses of fallen angels in this world and destroy them. It was his entry vector." "You mean you planned it that way?" "It was the only way," Roger said and stood. "This operation even precedes our relationship at Gon." "How can that be?" "Kuro Doragon in Japan set the whole thing up. It was the intention of that beast to set his enemies against one another, and take their spiritual territory for his own. The drive Pyotr took from you sent all information from that evil biotech to Ethan's cloud niche. He keeps everything suspended that he wants to keep. And his backdoor OS virus will destroy the data of the users who seek to trace him, which Kuro Doragon did automatically as soon as Kaido decided to look at the drive. That's right, Ethan said something about an operating system virus before we all left. Kuro Doragon brought it on himself. But if we had planned it with your knowledge and Ethan's knowledge, there would have been no positive outcome of this kind. You would have given away the game, even if you didn't mean to. For the Black Dragon of Japan is very cunning, and would have seen tells you didn't even know you gave. I have struggled with him in other eras of man, and I have seen him go. And now those in comas in Japan, used like the North Koreans, are free of their spiritual mental prison. I have told you, now you must tell Ethan, so he can tell Claire, and they can finally become a unit. That's the message? Ricky was incredulous. What about me? When do I get a miracle on our lady friend, Raj? Raj! Hey! But Raj was already gone. Melor and Sonechka watched Himari speak to White Paw as though he were perfectly capable of returning her words. To his credit, the cat seemed to be. Sonechka caught Melor's eye as they rocked on a bench by a textile facility where the gypsies had a notable amount of trade. The caravan would be returning from the west any day. It would come and they would join. Maybe they would stay in some other little Russian hamlet a short while, or maybe they would keep to the road. Sonechka broke eye contact with Melor and watched Himari dangle a string in front of the cat. The cat reared up and jumped at it. Himari laughed and ran the animal around, then stopped and began to admonish White Paw on topics of physics and gravity, gesturing to the string and the cat, making her case very compellingly. The animal even nodded. Sonechka found herself laughing. Melor took her hand. She clasped his in return.